greatest journey is the journey of the mind, and as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. We have a special guest on today's episode who is helping hundreds of people with the journey of the mind, with wisdom, love, and happiness, and most importantly, being in the present moment. So please welcome the tranquil, the wise, and the ever-present David Nock. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's a lot to live up to.
How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. Yes, I'm alright, thank you. How are you?
I'm tremendous, very tremendous.
Good.
So, the reason I wanted to get you on the show, because, we'll get onto what you do in a moment, but I attend a place called the School of Philosophy, and you personally have helped me in my life very greatly in terms of what you've taught me and the lessons you've taught me and the school you've established, which I've been attending. And it's helped me in everyday life with stress and time management and many different aspects. So this is the reason that I've been hounding you over the last few months to interview you, so we could get what you do out there, because I believe what you do in the Midlands can benefit a lot more people who probably don't know about what you do.
Probably not. No.
Yeah. So can you tell us what do you do in terms of why I brought you on the show?
In the school, well, my role at the school is as branch leader. This Midlands School of Philosophy is a branch of an organisation that was originally established in London called the School of Economic Science, and it's called economics because it originally taught economics, but not long after it started teaching economics, it moved into the study of philosophy in the 50s. Started in 1937, and the philosophy courses became far more popular than the economics courses. And then since then, branches have opened over all over the UK and all over the world, in most countries in the world, mainly teaching philosophy. Some teach other subjects, but philosophy has been the most popular one. And so what I do here in the Midlands is I run the Midlands branch. I haven't always run it. I was a student myself. I started as a student in 1983. The school opened in 1981 by a Yorkshireman actually called Tom Geary.
That's the Midlands.
In the Midlands, yeah. And that was 1981. Myself and the lady that's now my wife, who wasn't my wife then, we started in 1983. And so I was a student from 1983, well, still am a student, but I was a student in the Midlands School from 1983 till 2013. And then I took over the branch in 2013 as the branch leader. I still go to my own group though. I'm still a student myself. One of the kind of rules, if you like, or guidelines of the school is that nobody stops being a student, because it just keeps the river flowing. That does. It stops things being stagnant. And so I go to my group in Oxford, and so does my wife. We both go to our group in Oxford on a Thursday morning actually. And so what we do is just coordinate activities. There's a logical curriculum of the school that takes people from introducing the main concepts of practical philosophy, which is basically about self-development, about developing one's full potential as a human being, if you like, about finding happiness, contentment and freedom, and the kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? What I'm trying to say is that having the freedom to express oneself in the way that one feels one wants to do.
Yeah.
That's what practical philosophy is all about. Okay,
so what are the difference between practical philosophy that the school offers and, say, doing philosophy academically?
Well, as far as I'm aware, because I've never done philosophy academically, so I haven't got hands-on experience, is that what's practical philosophy is all about transformation. It's about people who want to change their lives for the better, to develop their potential as a human being. And so it's a mode, if you like, of self-understanding and self-development. Whereas, as far as I'm aware, academic philosophy is just about intellectually understanding philosophical concepts and what certain philosophers said about certain aspects of certain philosophical concepts. There is no kind of spiritual journey, if you like, or there's no kind of philosophical journey.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing to do with self-development. It's purely a academic situation where, at the end of the course, for instance, there's an exam where you're asked to answer questions on certain philosophical concepts and maybe even the lives of certain philosophers, whereas we would never go into that in practical school of philosophy. What's more important is what these philosophers have said to enable us to live a more happy and fuller and contented life, and to practice what they say and see if it works. Answering questions about them to see if you can remember what they said is of no relevance. The aim is, do we feel freer and happier at the end of it, really?
Yeah.
And only we know that.
And I would probably add to that, like, the actual practical part, putting what you learn in philosophy can be considered wisdom, like the action side.
Yeah, that's
actually
exactly.
applying
Yeah.
the knowledge
Yeah.
could be considered wisdom.
That's right, yeah. I mean, the way we approach the word knowledge, we immediately, right at the beginning, differentiate it from information. Information is somebody else's knowledge. So the internet is like full of information, but it's not. Nothing becomes knowledge until we actually practice it from a practical philosophy point of view. So that's the main difference between information and knowledge. It's putting that information into practice, and so that we now know that it's true. And then if we keep practicing that knowledge, that eventually becomes wisdom, because we become wise in whatever we practice, whether it's, plumbing, playing the guitar, baking a cake, or from the point of view of philosophy, living a life.
Yeah. So you can become wise in anything that you do, such as plumbing at work.
Yeah.
Say if the work is tedious
Mm.
or monotonous, how would you say one becomes wise whilst working something that may not be that interesting?
All right, at work, yeah. Well, first of all, one has to give one's full attention to it. It's all to become wise in anything. There's no way around it. You have to give your attention to whatever you're doing. What you do find is when you give attention to something, you start to get interested in it.
Yeah.
And when you get interested in it, you then start to give more attention to it. And also, when you give attention to something, what also miraculously happens is we come into the present moment. And by coming into the present moment, we start to becoming less and less influenced by our ideas and our thoughts and feelings about what we're actually doing. And so all the limitations and all the negative ideas perhaps about what we're about to do start to drop away. So it frees us up to actually do what we got to do.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, the answer to your question.
So, as a student coming to the school,
Yeah.
what can I expect to get from the Practical School of Philosophy?
Right, okay. It depends how much you put into it, because anything practical is about practice. I used to teach guitar, and people used to ask me the same question, and I used to say to them the same thing: how often can you practice? And of course, the more they practice, the better they got, and it's the same with philosophy as well. So we offer practices to the two main practices we offer right at the beginning. One is the practice of mindfulness.
Yeah.
Which of course has been very popular in the last 10 years.
Okay, can you describe mindfulness to us?
Well, we could do it if you like.
Yeah.
That'd be the best, wouldn't it? But before that, the other, well, okay, actually, let's practice it first.
Okay.
So mindfulness is very simple. Like all spiritual practices, they're very simple. Most spiritual practices are about allowing the attention to come into the present moment and the mind and the heart just to be open. That's what Tai Chi's about, it's what Qigong's about, it's what meditation's about, it's what yoga's about, and it's what mindfulness is all about. And so the idea is just a very simple practice to allow the mind to be free of its concerns, because nowadays in our frenetic world that we live in, we tend to live in the world of the mind mostly. Thinking about desires for the future, fears for the future, and perhaps lamenting on memories from the past. And this holds us up, really. It creates a very small bubble and creates limitations that we live in. And the idea of philosophy is to break free from that bubble and break free from those limitations and just be the self we always knew we was. Until those limitations got limiting, got too limiting. So the practice of mindfulness is very simply to connect with the present moment and just to give one space just to be, just to simply be, as simple as that. So should we just
Okay, I'm going to follow your lead, yeah.
Okay, all right. So just find a balanced, upright position. I can invite you to close your eyes, but you don't particularly have to. It's best to find a balanced upright position, because the idea of any of these practices is just allow all the muscles in the body to relax. And they can't do that if the skeleton isn't balanced and upright. It's a bit difficult on this chair, but it's best to have a bit more upright chair, but this will be fine for now. And particularly the head, make sure the head is balanced and upright. And then when we found that balance of body with the spine in its natural upright position, just start from the crown of the head and just allow all the muscles to relax, the crown and the forehead, the tongue and the jaw, the shoulders, the chest and the arms, the stomach and the legs. And be aware of the breath. Feel the cool in-breath and the warm out-breath at the tip of the nose. Now what we're going to do is just connect with each one of the senses. Because the thing about each one of our senses is that they only work properly, efficiently, if we're connected to them in the present moment. The senses are present. So we can use that as an anchor for the attention to rest with. That's all we're going to do. The attitude of the mind is to be non-judgmental, non-critical. That means non-judgmental and non-critical of any inner thing that's going on in the mind and the heart, and also non-judgmental or non-critical of any outer thing that's going on. Sounds, noises, this kind of thing. So it's an attitude of acceptance, inwardly and outwardly. So just be aware of the sense of touch. Feel the touch of the clothes on the skin. Feel the play of air on the face and the hands. Really connect with that. The idea is not to think about it, but really connect with the sense of touch. And next, be aware of the sense of taste. Just taste the present taste. Without particularly bothering about to name the taste or anything like that. Just rest. This is all about rest. It's not about doing, it's about rest. And then next move on to the sense of smell. To smell the present smell. while all this is going on, of course, the mind may want to drag the attention back to be concerned about whatever it's concerned about. But the discipline of these kind of practices is to, as soon as we become aware of that, is to let go of it and just give the attention back to the present sense, in this case, the sense of smell. And then just gently open the eyes and just be aware of colour and form. Again, there's no need to particularly name any of the forms that we see. The mind usually wants to, but the discipline is to let that go and just to actually see what's there. And then finally closing the eyes and giving the attention to the listening. Being aware of all the closest sounds. Remember, without any judgment or criticism, just accepting everything for the way it is. Nothing's an interruption. Everything's fine. And just allow that listening to expand. And expand even further. And just be aware of yourself, here and now. Just simply listening and doing nothing else. And just rest like that for a few moments and let everything else go. Bring that practice to a close. How's that?
It's an experience. Okay, so that was one of the practices that the new students can expect from coming to the School of Philosophy.
Yeah.
What's the other practice?
Well, we give them 2 practices on the first night. There's more than 2 throughout the 10-week course. There's about 4 or 5 actually, maybe even 6. But on the first night, that's the core one, because that starts the development on being, on self-development, and takes it away from just being an intellectual chase, which tends to be the way we approach most things now when we're being educated. We have to get from A to B, and then we have to have a test or an exam at B. We either pass or we don't. Well, practical philosophy is nothing like that. It's about development of being. It's about being centered in yourself. So you can't have an exam for that. You either are or you aren't. That's it. So the second practice we give to help with that is just for the students simply to ask the question in any situation that they're in, whether it's negative or positive, what would a wise person do here?
What would a wise person do? Yeah.
In this situation. So it could be, for instance, lots of students give examples about driving. Lots of students give examples about being in the pub, being in a restaurant, being with people at work that they have got conflict with, and this kind of thing. Which doesn't have to be all negative things, it can be positive things as well, like being in the pub. And if you ask the question, what would a wise person do here? All it does is provide space for a more reasonable response, rather than just a habitual reaction. So as part of the journey in transformation, we have to kind of see our habits and see how we react, and then develop the sense of reason in our mind, which comes from having a more stiller mind and a more open heart, and seeing things from a bigger perspective. And then give a more reasoned response. And just asking a very simple question like that enables that to happen. It might sound too simple to be true, but it works. It always works, as long as people practice.
Yeah.
Like I say, going back to your initial question, you said, what would people expect to get out of it? Well, they'll get quite a lot out of it as long as they practice. As long as they ask that question as many times as they can, and as long as they practice the exercise, 2, 3, 4 times a day, they will start to get something out of it pretty quick. If nobody does that and only practices the exercise when they come on a Wednesday night and only asks the question, on the bus on the way to here on a Wednesday night, then it's because they only just remembered, then it's going to be a bit slow. So that's the situation. We also offer, also in the introductory course, we do give a lot of good food for the mind. We cover most of the prime philosophical concepts. For instance, in week 1, we talk about what philosophy actually is, as what it means. It means the love of wisdom. So we talk about what wisdom is and what the love of wisdom might mean.
And the introductory course is called Wisdom.
Yeah, it's called Wisdom. Yeah, it's part of a foundation year. There's a triple module foundation year called, the first one's called Wisdom, which we offer for £5, so that people can get a taste of what we offer here at the school. It's a risk-free taste, so they can come for 10 weeks and never come again, or they can just turn up and go after the first week if they don't like it, because they've only paid £5, and a lot of people do that. Of course, a lot of people also stay for the second module and the third module and go on for longer and longer. The second module is called Love, Philosophy and Love, and no, it's not Happiness, Philosophy and Happiness, and the third module is called Philosophy and Love, and then there's further modules moving into the second year. But in the first module, we cover the main concepts of philosophy. So the main question in all spiritual philosophy, all over planet Earth, is the question, what am I? What is my essential nature?
What am I? It's not a question that a lot of people ask, do they? What am I?
No, because there's, in the frenetic pace of the way we live nowadays, most people assume they know who they are.
Yeah.
and it's not until life gets a bit too painful, perhaps, that they start asking the question, well, what am I then? Or as one gets a bit older and looks back on one's life and seen all the changes in one's life, and now the body's particularly changing and this kind of thing, but inside they might still feel the same as they did when they were 16, and you think, well, actually, what am I then? And it starts to become a real question. Sooner than others with some people, but it doesn't matter. Whenever it happens is good. So we look at that question and see what various traditions have said about it. The 2 traditions we use the most in the school are the Vedic Indian tradition and the Greek tradition. And so we tend to look at it from the Chinese perspective sometimes as well, from Taoism and Confucianism and various other perspectives. Other basic concepts that are part of the first year are, we look at levels of consciousness, levels of awareness.
Levels of consciousness. Yeah.
Which we can equate at the moment that to be just levels of awareness, how awake we are.
So could you quickly just give an example of levels of consciousness?
Yeah. In most spiritual traditions on the planet, they call them different names, but what we call them in the School of Practical Philosophy is there's 5 experiences of life that we basically have as human beings. One seems a contradiction because we don't experience it, is deep sleep. But we all experience deep sleep. Or we only know about it when we wake up. So, to say that it's an experience is a bit of a contradiction because we don't actually experience it because we're asleep. But we do know about it when we wake up. So that's one kind of condition of a human being. The next condition or level of awareness or level of consciousness, if you like, of a human being is the dream state. Everybody dreams. Some dream more than others, some dream less than others, and there's various degrees of dreaming. It's an entire science in itself. The great psychologist Carl Jung went into dreams and what they mean and that kind of thing. We don't do that so much in the school, because in the school we're more concerned with in the wakeful states, the area that we can actually work with. So there's the dream state, and all human beings experience that. The next state is the waking state, which is the situation we're in now. We're apparently awake and we're talking to each other. Apparently, yeah. But the trouble is, and that's called the waking state, and this waking state, with a bit of analysis, turns out to be not completely a waking state at all, because waking state infers that we're present and awake, and unfortunately most people aren't. We're concerned with things going on in our mind, like you might be concerned at the moment with all the technicalities working and what you're going to say next and what I'm going to say next. I might be concerned at the moment with what I'm going to say next and this kind of thing. What I'm going to do tonight, what I did last night, and all kinds of things might be going on. All these things stop us being awake, and that's how most people live. And of course, for some people, it gets quite clinical, and people can have quite down thoughts that makes them depressed ultimately, and this kind of thing. Or there can be just the opposite, thoughts and feelings that make us quite elated. Anyway, the result it has is to stop us being completely present. The trouble is, in our lives, in our frenetic lifestyle that we live, it keeps us out of the present moment, which stops us actually being present. And that's important because the presence of life is the only thing that's real.
Yeah.
There's nothing else real. The presence is now. The reality is now. So living in a past dream, if you like, or worrying about the future, takes us out the present moment. So it takes us out of reality and stops us living now. And so therefore we can end up wasting our lives and living in a very small world, because living in the world of the mind, although the mind's quite capable of high and pious feelings, these kind of thoughts that I'm talking about are usually the worrying ones, the ones, how am I going to feed the kids, pay the mortgage, this kind of thing. How am I going to do this? What about if this happens? And all that kind of thing.
Which can stagnate a person,
exactly,
very much so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It can freeze a person. And that's a shame. So the next level then, so that's the waking state. Like I said, in this waking state, it turns out to be, we're not as awake as we think we are. The next level then is awake, still awake, but in the present. So it's being awake and being present.
Yeah.
And that can be easily done. We've just practiced the awareness exercise of connecting with the senses. And that can be easily done in the workplace by just attending to what you do. So the key to that is just being attentive. Attentive to the way you walk, the way you talk, attentive to what you're thinking about, so you don't waste time thinking. And spiritual practices that help with that are obviously mindfulness, meditation, yoga, tai chi, qigong, because these are all practices that bring us as a human being into the present moment.
Yeah.
So that's the level, the next level.
And to get to that level, it's like a muscle, isn't it? Like it's
yeah.
not easy at first.
No.
But if you keep practicing it,
Yeah.
you can develop it just like a muscle.
Quite, yeah.
Yeah.
It's natural, but you have to do it. A bit like walking is natural.
Yeah.
It's natural for a human being to walk, but we do have to practice a bit when we're about 12 months old. And the same as riding a push bike as well.
Yeah.
It's kind of easy and in a way natural to do that as well. But it takes us a time to get our balance and this kind of thing. So waking up is quite natural for a human being as well. You must remember, the name of our race is human being. We're not human becoming. Most people live as if they're a human becoming. They want to be this and want to do this and race for this and achieve this and achieve that and the other. We're actually human beings. We just have to simply be. That's
Yeah.
all. And if we approach life from that point of view, we can be whatever we want then. There's far more potential and far more energy available for us to do whatever we need to do. So that's the next level, is coming into the present moment, being awake to the present moment. The next level to that is what we call in school higher consciousness. And this is similar to being, or the same as being present. So one is absolutely present in the present moment, fully awake to what's going on. But one sees that from a deeper level. So one connects with the humanity within ourselves, from the essence of ourselves. And what we find when we do that, we also connect with the humanity in everybody else as well.
Yeah.
And so, and not just humanity, with all the creatures, and all the plants, and all the trees, and everything else. So higher conscious is the same as being present, but there's a deeper level of you could call it a sense of unity, a sense of love, a sense of peace, a sense of stillness, whatever you want to call it, it's the same thing. Bliss, there's an underpinning kind of happiness there as well, because happiness and bliss always arises from a sense of unity. In all our experiences we've had in life, if it's been a truly happy one, there's been a sense of unity there, whether it be at a pop concert or a wedding or whatever, football match even.
So how would you say someone gets to higher consciousness?
By practice and practice and practice of being in the present moment.
Yeah.
And also, two things actually. One needs to learn and practice to be in the present moment, and one needs to understand more about the nature of the self, which is also the kind of intellectual study of practical philosophy. So it has got a kind of rational, reasonable, intellectual aspect to it, which is understanding the nature of the self, and to see what these great people like Plato and Shankara and Buddha and Lao Tzu and modern thinkers have said about the nature of the self.
Yeah.
And then experience that in actual, real experience. So then when you do that, you don't have to believe anything, because you know yourself. If you remember, one of the guiding principles of practical philosophy is neither accept or reject anything.
Neither accept or reject anything.
Just try it and see.
Yeah.
Just try it and see what happens. And that's the principle that we work on in the school.
So have you experienced higher consciousness yourself, or?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what did it do for you? What was the feeling of higher consciousness?
One can only express it in the words I just have, really, but there's a kind of sense of stop. I don't have to do anything anymore to achieve fulfillment and satisfaction in life as a human being. In other words, by achieving a result in this, he's not going to make it any better. I'm kind of okay as I am.
Yeah. Contentness.
Content,
yeah.
Complete content. Overwhelming kind of, usually, not overwhelming, at first overwhelming, but you kind of get used to it, but there's a sense of bliss, and that which obviously forms part of the contentment and the satisfaction. It engenders then a sense of love for one's fellow human beings, because in the end, at a very essential level, we're all brothers and sisters, all of us. And that carries on out into to the rest of the creation as well, to all the creatures and all the animals and plants as well. And because there's a sense of unity, or there is unity, there's just unity. So because of that, there's stillness, and because of that, there's peace. What I've just said, of course, is just using English adjectives to describe something that's pretty inexplicable, really. And I think that's the difference between your first question, between academic philosophy and practical philosophy. Perhaps academics would write about these kind of what they would call metaphysical or mystical experiences, whereas in practical philosophy we're just concerned with experiencing and doing mindfulness and meditative practices and working with attention to bring ourselves into the present, to, if you like, raise our level of awareness, to increase our level of awareness.
Okay.
And so that's probably the main difference between the two paths of philosophy.
Yeah. So you've been a student for a long time now. How has practical philosophy helped you in your daily life? So what do you work?
I'm semi-retired, but I still work. Yes.
Yeah.
I still work. Yeah. I work as a railway signalling engineer, and I've been doing that since the age of 16. I left school at 16, so that's from 1977, and I took semi-retirement 5 years ago.
Oh, okay.
But I still work. I ended up as a trainer teaching railway signalling engineering, and so I do that from time to time for a private company in Wolverhampton, and I also do some assessment work as well for the railway signalling engineers, because their competencies need assessing every 2 years. So I do some of that as well. So yeah, I still work.
Okay.
And of course there's all the work I do in the school as well.
How does practical philosophy help you in your daily life and work? Because everyone experiences stress, conflict inevitably when they're working.
Yeah.
So how has it helped you over the years that you've worked?
Yeah, quite. Well, yes, the working life now can be quite a stressful situation, can't it? With deadlines and goalposts getting ever wider and ever wider. And practical philosophy helped me by, well, first of all our kind of, a lot of where do our concerns and worries about what we do exist? They exist in the mind, don't they? And then, of course, the mind's always tied up with our feelings, so we get feelings about that as well. And if those are allowed to carry on, they can become quite overwhelming. And in the end, can make us ill, or anything like that, really, or create some kind of stressful situation that makes us ill. What practical philosophy can do if you practice it, because practicing philosophy is just all about practicing things that enables a person to be present and just deal with what's right in front of them. And usually to deal with what's right in front of you is simple enough. But if we're in the mind, we're not only dealing with right in front of us, we're dealing with the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And so that means we don't deal with what's right in front of us efficiently at all.
Yeah. And
all the great philosophers say, if you just deal with what's right in front of you, the future just takes care of itself. And so, in a nutshell, that's how practical philosophy has helped in the workplace. It just enables one to just deal with this thing right now. And then when you deal with that, you deal with that thing right now. And then you deal with that thing right now. There's not 10 things to deal with, you see. I mean, there might be, but you can only actually deal with one, so you just deal with the one right now, and then the future takes care of itself. And what it does mean is you give your attention to the thing that you're doing, and you actually do it right, and you don't make mistakes, and you don't have to do it twice, and you don't forget anything. And so it's the best formula anybody could ever learn is attention equals efficiency. Attention equals efficiency. Because it does.
Yeah.
And so the more attention we give to anything, the more efficient we are. And so if we practice that, if anybody wants to learn how to be efficient, they just go practice how to attend to things.
Yeah.
And so practicing things like meditation and mindfulness just helps with that. And so that's one thing. Another thing it helps in the workplace is, in work, a lot of people are doing things they don't like doing. But they have to do it because they've got to feed the kids and pay the mortgage and they want to go on holiday and all this kind of thing. But if they had the ideal choice, they probably wouldn't be doing that. They'd be doing whatever their hobby is. They'd be playing racquetball or playing the guitar or knitting or something, you know, whatever it is.
Doing what they love, you could say.
Exactly, yeah, doing what they love. So there's also that to contend with as well. So as well as worrying about the job and the pressure that the boss is putting on and this kind of thing, there's also this internal kind of I don't know whether worry is the right word, but this is internal feeling that I could be doing something better with my life. I don't want to be doing this. I would rather be, in my case, playing the guitar, you know, or writing music or something like that. That's the kind of ideas I had in my mind when I was a young man. And they went on for a long time. So, again, just practicing being present and being mindful allows one to deal with those kind of limitations as well. Because when you're at work and you're dealing with, they might not be a limitation in themselves when you're actually playing the guitar or teaching the guitar or writing music. If you're supposed to be doing something else, they're a limitation. And also it creates a conflict in our mind as well, which can eventually make us feel angry and bitter about the job we're doing, and then people end up not liking the job they're doing because it's stopped them getting satisfaction in life and all sorts of things. So it also helps from that point of view as well, just to actually be present. And who knows, if one does become efficient and become present, what we start to do is become aware. Yeah. And we start to become aware of paths and doorways that we were never aware of before.
To help you get out of that job in the first place.
So what there might be a door that's been open to you all this time that's saying, actually, you haven't got to keep on doing this. If you just did this and tried this, you could go down another path and try doing something that was more akin to your nature. Yeah. So So that's the kind of thing that's happened to me as well.
That reminds me of Jim Rohn when he's talking about people in work, like he says just change it, and maybe just being present can help people to change it. And he says just change it, you're not a tree. Yeah, but even though trees are more present probably than we are.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They got no choice.
Yeah. But I'm just gonna wrap up here with two questions.
Okay.
In the basis of one main question. So the question is, what does success mean to you? And I would like you to answer it in a way of what does success mean in the way of practical philosophy,
Right.
and what does success mean to you personally? So if you want to address what does success mean in the way of practical philosophy first.
Okay. Success in the way of practical philosophy, the way I perceive it anyway, would be bringing our two worlds together, our worldly world, our physical material world, if you like, our life as we would call it, and also our spiritual world. Now for our worldly world, of course, our kind of material, spiritual world, the way we live, we need to have success in that because we need to eat, and we need to have a home to go to, and we need to keep warm and buy clothes, and we need to look after our children. So success would be educating ourselves and finding a job where we can do that.
Yeah.
And we don't need much more than that, actually. We don't need to be millionaires, particularly. I mean, you can be if you want, but I'm just talking about needs now. Yes, we can. So if you can do that from a worldly point of view, then you've achieved a certain level of success, and especially if you can find a job that you like doing, to do that. From a spiritual point of view, the success there is just to do all that, but do it from the point of view of being present, of being totally present. Because the present moment is the only reality. And if we work from the present reality, which is the only reality, then we are totally in connection with our essential nature. And our essential nature the wise from the Indian tradition give a name for our essential nature, or at least give the characteristics of it, which is in Sanskrit is called Satchitananda, which means consciousness, knowledge and bliss. So it means if we are present and we connect with our essential nature, it means consciousness. So another word for consciousness could be awareness. It means we are aware, we're experiencing higher levels of awareness or higher consciousness because we're totally present. Knowledge means we will have all the knowledge. If we do that, well, that means we will be connected with everything in our environment. We'll also be connected with our past memories as well. So we will have everything we need to deal with the present moment. The knowledge will just be there. Because we're totally connected, we'll see what's needed, and we can refer to our memory. If it's not in our memory to deal with it, we'll have the humility to say, I need training to do this, or I need to ask somebody else to do this. And we won't try and do it ourselves because we know we can't do it. But that takes knowledge to know that, and a bit of humility. So the knowledge will be there to deal with anything. And the other aspect of Satchitananda, Ananda means bliss. There will be a sense of bliss, of happiness, of contentment and satisfaction in everything we do. So success, I suppose, would be bringing that kind of... You can look at the worldly life as a linear kind of line, if you like, from A to B, or even from birth to death, should we have it. And so we live this life, we grow up, we become young men and women, and we have careers, and we have children, and we grow old, and eventually we die. That's our kind of worldly life. Our spiritual life is like a vertical line, and that vertical line is about not only coming into the present moment, and the two things cross. So there's our kind of worldly life, and there's our spiritual life like that. And so the kind of the success would be to bring those two worlds together.
Yeah.
And where they cross is the present moment. And so to live our worldly life and our spiritual life as one. And so that means whatever we would do in the world would be done from a point of view of a more free point of view, totally aware, totally sure about what we need to do to do this present thing or to do what we need to do next, and totally contented and happy about doing it.
I would ask you, how do you bring those two worlds together? But anyone who's watching is going to have to come to the School of Philosophy to find that out.
Yeah,
and for you personally, just to wrap up, how would you define success to yourself?
Success to myself. What naturally happens when you bring those two worlds together and you approach life from the present moment and connect with people at their essential level, and you do start to realise there's a certain brotherhood of man. One naturally wants to just serve the present situation. And so life then becomes a change, and this is the biggest thing, I think, from having to do this to wanting to do it, from having to do one's job, from having to serve, from actually wanting to serve.
Yeah.
And the freedom in that change is the freedom that makes all the difference. So when that can happen to me, when I can totally be in any situation that I'm in and at the emotional ground, the attitude, if you like, of just wanting to be of service in every situation I'm in, that would be success.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your experience at the School of Philosophy, and
thank you.
It's been very appreciative to have you on, and yeah, learned a lot.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for watching, and please check out the School of Philosophy if you want to find out more. Introductory course is £5. You have nothing to lose in terms of gaining new experience, just checking it out. So yeah, check out the School of Philosophy. And please, if you like the video, like what you've heard, learned anything new, please like, comment, share, subscribe, and look forward to a future video. Thank you.